The voices of the sky shakes the earth. Here now the snow unfurls. The great beast waits to meet with you upon the very throat of the world. The throat of the world. The tallest point in Skyrim. A land that is both cold as it is beautiful, filled with caves and ruins that get you eager to explore, with the amazing music by Jeremy Soule that accompanies you along your ventures. The fifth game in the Elder Scrolls franchise is one of the most well-known titles in games. If you haven't played it, you most likely have heard it, especially since they keep re-releasing it every so often. Recently, I began to play it again, since I never got all the achievements and I really wanted to explore the world. Coming back to it made me realize just how beautiful it all was, even without the help of mods. There are cons, of course, but with Bethesda games being notoriously buggy and having to use mods to fix certain bugs, that still never really got fixed after all these years. Some quests that don't make sense or bug out while in the middle of a playthrough. Fortunately, most can be circumvented through the use of console commands, but if you're playing on a console, you're sadly out of luck. The combat and perks have also been downgraded from previous games, preferring to go for a more streamlined approach to how you want to build your character. Though mods help fix a lot of those problems, it's a shame that the base game isn't as focused on combat as it could have been. Where you fight many enemies, you only get so many things to work with. Two-handed weapons, one-handed weapons, bows, and magic, with the weapons usually being some denomination of axes, swords, or maces. As well as a crossbow from the Dawnguard DLC, there's not too many different choices to have, given from its previous titles where there was a plethora of different weapons to use. You can do unarmed combat, but you really have to find a way to make it work. Otherwise, it's best to mod in something to really help build off of that. Same goes for magic. Although there are plenty of cool spells, not all of them are really worth using since they aren't as useful or have very niche uses that only are useful for when you need it. There are only a few places in the world where using magic actually helps you in doing certain dungeons or puzzles, one of which being Labyrinthian when going through Shalador's maze, and maybe a couple other instances where you can arguably use magic to really help you. But for the most part they aren't required, and instead it usually just goes down to slugging matches between you and whoever you fight. Oftentimes it's just enough to use your sword. The dungeon design is mostly good, albeit maybe a little too simple. Most of the time you just need to find a lever or a button, where only a few have some fun puzzles that you can really think with. But I understand making unique tasks for all of the dungeons in Skyrim would be difficult. I just feel that the over-simplicity of it makes the puzzles in more generic dungeons a bit redundant. I could be nitpicky and complain about every quest, but it's almost 14-year-old game at this point, and Bethesda hasn't really changed much of their design philosophy since. So I take what I can get for something fun when it comes to games by them. In which, there are still games that are still fun that are published by them. Yet despite these issues, the game is still worth playing, even if you just wish to run around the world for a bit. There are many quests to do, and many items to collect throughout the world, be it doing certain tasks for the Daedra, in which there are some that are less evil than others, to assassinating the very Emperor of Cyrodiil, in which I often kill the man who called the hit. Personally, I don't like the guy. But why should you play it? To simply put, it's still a remarkable fantasy. Every playthrough is fairly different, while events play out the same due to its nature. It's how you interact with the world that really gives its meaning. You play as the last Dragonborn, a character destined to beat the dragon Alduin, the final boss of the base game. Throughout your journey, you'll run into various ruins and set pieces that give way to you meeting certain characters and seeing parts of the world that feel more and more special as you go. From Dwemer ruins and underground caverns to the very heavens itself. The reason I love the game is mostly through the visual appeal and the feeling of being in another world. One of my favorite things to do is to organize my various homes and travel with my favorite companions while we fight different enemies and help different people. Many people have different opinions on the game itself, but one thing I believe is certain is that you can never really beat walking through the world, and just taking it all in of what it has to offer. The community behind it is also as strong as ever, and only continues to release new content you can sink your teeth into, and further your experience. Being able to create new stories through the use of mods is one of the best things to happen to the game, as it allows people to come together and really increase the experience. I can only hope that the next installment of The Elder Scrolls is just as good, if not better, so that we can once again venture into the world of Tamriel and further the stories that we wish to hear. Thank you for watching.